Hey everybody, this is Sarah. If you don't know me, I'm a physical therapist, former yoga teacher, so I sort of straddle both worlds. And I am going to be talking today about this thing that comes up sometimes when I'm working with teachers, which is, do I always have to do the same amount of exercises on both sides when I'm teaching a class or things like that? So if you're watching and you have questions or comments, feel free to write them as I'm talking, and we'll definitely get into that. So here's the basic question. If I'm doing a sequence of poses or if I'm doing a series of exercises, am I always supposed to do whatever I do on the right side? Do I then do the same thing on the left side? And my experience was that when I first became a yoga teacher, which was 16 years ago, that was what I was told, that when you taught a class, you do whatever you do on one side of the sequence, and then you repeat the exact same thing on the other side. And, I was brand new teacher. I didn't know very much, and so that made sense. And so I was like, sure, fine, absolutely, same on both sides. And, when I think about it, there is certainly the potential that there's some sort of like esoteric anatomy reason that you would do the same thing on both sides that has less to do with physical anatomy, but more to do with that aspect of yoga. But so that was my first message that I got, was like, yes, same. And then when I did like Con Ed for yoga, when I would do sort of immersions and further trainings and things like that, this question would come up. And, I never honestly got a really clear answer in those settings either. I would hear, yes, you do the same. I would hear, it depends, but not any sort of understanding why it depends. I would hear, no, don't have to do the same, but it was just sort of confusing. And underneath all of this, there was sort of always this question of, well, you don't want to make people lopsided, right? So you want to do the same on both sides, but that kind of ignores the fact that most of us in some way are already lopsided, in ways that we may know and in ways that we may not know, may not be obvious. When I became a physical therapist, that question kind of went away because, let's say I'm treating a client or a patient who's, they broke their leg and their leg has been in a cast and they haven't used it. And then it's much smaller, so we work on strengthening that side, for example. Dana Sweeney is saying, hella lopsided over here, yes. So in the rehab setting, it's not a question. And even if it's not something where it's like a traumatic incident like that, you're also looking for those sort of, reasons behind the injury or reason behind the overuse. So you're still sort of like picking and choosing really specific things to work on. Speaking of hella lopsided, if you saw my last post that I did, I recently discovered that when I tried to do a single leg squat to sit into a chair and stand back up again, nope, I can do it it's not pretty, but I can do it on the left side. I cannot do it on the right side. And it makes sense for me with some, history that I have in my pelvis is not even. But that's a really high level of asymmetry where you like literally cannot do the same thing on both sides. Not just like, it's a little harder or whatever. But the thing is, like, it's not something I notice in my day-to-day. I'm not trying to get in and out of a chair on one leg on a regular basis, right? So, and I don't have any pain. It's not coming up in any way. So there's not necessarily like a problem right now, but that amount of asymmetry very likely down the line in the future could lead to something, overuse, compensation, problems, things like that. So, it's worth working on, and it's definitely worth looking into for yourself. And so, if I think about as far as teaching, like what would you do on a practical level as a teacher? If you're teaching a group class, you could do something like, have the whole class do, let's say, a balancing pose like tree pose. Have them do it on each side, and you cue them ahead of time to pay attention to, is this harder on one side for one reason? Is it, more difficult to balance, or do you feel stronger on one side than the other? And then have them do it again, but have them do it again just on the side that was more challenging. And what that then does for you as a teacher is it makes you that kind of like super skill level teacher where you are teaching the group, but you are also teaching each individual person. And that's a really high level of teaching that, you know, for me at least, I always want to try to be able to do. You could do it in a workshop. It's be even easier in a workshop because people are already in the mindset of, okay, we're going to break things down. We're going to be working on this sort of general area. It's not going to be a flow experience, you know, and so they're more sort of ready to have to get into that kind of experimentation. And then in that setting as well, especially, you could get into some of those more secondary reasons, like let's look at your mobility at this joint. Is it as flexible as it is on the other side? Or let's look at your strength in this part of your leg or this part of your core or however. And then obviously if you're working privately with somebody, it's perfect because you can just very clearly curate their experience and then the work that they're doing. So I would love to hear from you guys, your thoughts. You can comment on this or any solutions that you've come up with to sort of manage this issue. This is the kind of stuff that I talk about in my small group mentorship that I have that's called Quantum Leap Community. And I'm gonna be giving you guys some more of that content over the next few weeks. So thanks so much for watching. If the mentorship sounds interesting to you, you can sign up for more information about it in my bio. All right, have a great rest of the day, you guys.